I've been sitting with a thought for a while now. Not the kind that shows up loudly or demands your attention, the kind that waits until everything else goes quiet, late at night, or on long drives, in moments where there's nothing loud enough to distract you from yourself. And if you've ever noticed how those moments feel heavier than they should, how your mind suddenly gets clearer and louder at the same time, then you might already know the thoughts I'm talking about. It's this: why does feeling alone hurt more than actually being alone? Because being alone, truly alone, isn't always painful. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's grounding, sometimes it's the only time you feel like you can actually breathe without performing for anyone, without adjusting yourself to the room you're in. It's a kind of aloneness that feels intentional, almost protective, like stepping outside the noise for a moment and remembering what your own thoughts actually sound like. But feeling alone doesn't feel like that at all. Feeling alone is heavy. It sits in your chest quietly, doesn't announce itself or ask for attention. It just stays. It shows up even when your phone isn't empty, even when people are around you, even when your life looks full from the outside. And that's the part that messes with you, because on paper, nothing is wrong. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're showing up, you're replying, you're there. So why does it still hurt? You're listening and thinking, that's exactly it. This is where it actually starts to make sense. I think part of the reason is that we've started confusing loneliness with silence, as if quiet automatically means something is wrong, as if being alone is a problem that needs to be fixed, filled, or distracted away as quickly as possible. Silence isn't always the enemy we make it out to be. Sometimes silence is just space to breathe, space to think, space to feel without friction, without commentary, without interruption. Feeling alone is different. And if you felt it before, you know this isn't just semantics. You know there's a difference even if you've never had the words for it. Because feeling alone doesn't give you space, it slowly takes it away. Being alone is physical. It's about where your body is, what room you're in, whether anyone else is there with you. Feeling alone is emotional separation. It's distance you feel deeply without being able to point to where it starts or explain why it's there. You can choose to be alone. You can step back, take time, tell yourself this is temporary, but feeling alone doesn't ask for permission before it even arrives. And it usually stays longer than you expect. Some of my clearest moments came when I was completely by myself. Late walks, long drives, headphones on, no one needing anything from me, no one expecting a version of me, no one waiting for me to respond the right way. That kind of aloneness felt almost therapeutic, like grounding yourself without having to say a single word out loud. And if you're still here listening to this, you'd probably agree. But feeling alone is wanting to speak and stopping halfway through the thoughts. It's editing yourself before you've even been heard. It's opening a message, typing something honest, and then deleting it because you don't know how it'll land. It's being surrounded by conversation and laughter and movement and still feeling hollow, like you narrowly missed something important and don't know how to get it back. That's not silence, that's absence. It's not about being unheard, it's about being unseen. I think feeling alone hurts more because it carries expectation with it. A quiet belief we don't consciously agree to but still hold on to. When you're alone, no one is supposed to be there for you. There's no invisible promise hanging in the background. But when you feel alone, part of you assumes something different. That someone should notice the shift. Someone should sense the pause. Someone should ask you how you're actually doing, not out of habit, not just to fill space before moving on. And when that moment never comes, your mind doesn't process it logically. It doesn't calmly explain it away. It doesn't say, this makes sense. It internalizes it quietly and turns it into something personal. That's why feeling alone can hurt more in a crowded room than it ever does in an empty space. Because now it's not just about isolation, it's about invisibility. It's realizing that proximity doesn't guarantee connection. Being close to people doesn't mean being close to anyone. Maybe for you it shows up differently. Maybe it's laughing a second too late. Maybe it's realizing you don't know who you'd call if something actually went wrong. Maybe it's being everyone's listener and feeling like no one ever really listens back. The loneliest moments of my life weren't empty or quiet, they were full of people I just couldn't reach. Moments where I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling without sounding dramatic, where every version of the truth felt either too much or not enough. Moments where I didn't feel like I had the right words, and moments where disappearing felt strangely possible. My absence wouldn't really disrupt anything. That thought alone can mess with how you see your own value, even when no one ever explicitly made you feel that way. People avoid talking about this kind of loneliness because it sounds extreme. Like you're exaggerating something that shouldn't hurt that much. But it's not dramatic. It's human. And it's more common than we admit. It just hides well. Because from the outside, everything looks fine. We live in a world where loneliness almost feels impossible. Connection is everywhere, constant, immediate. But interaction doesn't guarantee understanding. And presence doesn't mean someone really sees you. You can talk all day, reply to messages, show up to things, and still feel distant in a way you can't fully explain. Because connection isn't about quantity, it's about depth. It's about someone noticing what changes in you, someone hearing the shift in your tone, someone realizing you've gone quiet and asking why. And the strange part of modern life is how easy it is to hide all of this. Because everything looks normal on the surface. We don't talk about feeling alone very well because it's uncomfortable. Being alone has reasons. Feeling alone feels like something is wrong with you. It makes you ask questions you don't really want answers to. Why this doesn't feel like enough anymore. Why you still feel disconnected even when you're not alone. Here's what I'm slowly realizing though, and it took time to admit. Feeling alone doesn't mean you're broken. Most of the time it means you're craving depth. Not noise, not attention, not surface level interaction. You don't want more people around you, you want real presence. And that's not weakness, that's awareness. Some people never feel alone because they never look for more. They stay on the surface and never notice what's missing. But once you do notice it, once you really feel that gap, you can't unsee it. So yeah, being alone doesn't always hurt the way we think it does. Sometimes it heals you quietly, sometimes it gives you room to breathe and hear yourself again. But feeling alone is something else entirely. It's wanting connection, not finding right when you reach out. It's being present but overlooked, existing softly in a world that rarely slows down. If you're feeling that right now, I don't think you're failing in life, and I don't think you're behind. I think you're human, trying to connect deeply in a world that doesn't always make space for that. Maybe the first step isn't fixing it. Maybe it's not optimizing it away. Maybe it's just naming it honestly, realizing you're not strange for feeling the way you do. That's it.